The silence was the heaviest thing Imani had ever known. It pressed down, a thick, suffocating blanket woven from unanswered questions and unspoken fears. It followed her every step through the hushed halls of the prestigious Crestwood Academy, a silence only broken by the polite yet distant nods of her classmates, their eyes sliding past her like she was a ghost. Imani knew what that silence meant. It was the unspoken language of privilege, a language she was still trying to decipher. She gripped the worn strap of her violin case, its familiar weight a small comfort in the cavernous building. Music was her escape, her sanctuary. The notes, the rhythms, the sheer emotional power of the melodies transcended the barriers of race and class. They spoke a universal language, one that everyone could understand or at least feel, but even music felt tainted here. Crestwood was a place where reputations were built on generations of wealth and legacy. Imani, a scholarship student from the South Side, was an anomaly, a splash of vibrant color in a black and white photograph. She knew some saw her as a charity case, an experiment, a way for the school to pat itself on the back for its inclusivity. Her violin teacher, Mr. Abernathy, was one of the few exceptions. He saw beyond the color of her skin, beyond her background. He saw only the music within her, the raw, untamed talent that burned like a flickering flame. Imani, he had said during her first lesson, his eyes twinkling behind his spectacles. You have a gift. Don't let anyone extinguish it. But keeping that flame alive was proving harder than she imagined. The subtle microaggressions, the snide remarks, the feeling of being constantly observed chipped away at her confidence. She felt like she was walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might confirm their preconceived notions about her. One afternoon, she overheard a group of girls whispering in the hallway. Did you hear? Imani got the solo in the winter concert. Can you believe it? A South Side girl playing Vivaldi? The air crackled with disdain. Imani's heart plummeted. The solo. It was the culmination of years of hard work, a dream realized, but now it fell poisoned, tainted by their prejudice. Doubts gnawed at her. Was she good enough? Did she deserve it? Were they right? That night she sat in her small dorm room, the violin case unopened beside her. The silence was heavier than ever. She picked up her phone, her fingers hovering over her mother's number. Her mother, who had sacrificed everything to give her this opportunity. Her mother, who believed in her with unwavering faith. But what could she say? How could she explain the feeling of being an outsider, of constantly battling against a current of prejudice? She couldn't burden her with that. Instead, she closed her eyes and remembered her grandmother, Nana May. Nana May, who had raised her on stories of resilience and resistance, of Black women who had overcome unimaginable obstacles with grace and dignity. Nana May, who had taught her that her voice, her story, mattered. Imani opened her eyes and reached for her violin. As she drew the bow across the strings, the notes poured out of her, a torrent of emotions, frustration, anger, pain, but also hope and determination. She played with a ferocity she hadn't known she possessed, channeling her ancestors' strength, her mother's love, and her own burning desire to prove them wrong. The music filled the room, chasing away the silence. In that moment, she wasn't just Imani, the scholarship student from the South Side. She was a vessel, a conduit for something larger than herself, a voice for those who had been silenced. The next day at school, Imani walked with her head held high. The whisper still followed her, but they no longer stung as deeply. She knew who she was. She knew her worth. She approached Mr. Abernathy after class. Mr. Abernathy, she said, her voice clear and strong. I'm ready for the solo. He smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. I know you are, Imani. I always knew you were. The day of the winter concert arrived, a swirl of anticipation and nerves. The auditorium was packed with Crestwood's elite, their faces a blur of privilege and expectation. Imani stood backstage, her heart pounding in her chest. As she stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the audience. The spotlight shone down on her, illuminating her face, her violin. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Then she began to play. The notes soared through the auditorium, filling the space with their beauty and power. Imani poured her soul into the music, each note a testament to her resilience, her identity, her unwavering spirit. She played for her mother, for Naname, for all the black women who had paved the way for her. She played for herself. As the final note faded away, a stunned silence hung in the air. Then the applause erupted, a thunderous wave of appreciation that washed over her. People rose to their feet, their faces filled with admiration. In that moment, Imani wasn't just a scholarship student from the South Side. She was a musician, an artist, a force to be reckoned with. She had silenced the doubters, not with words, but with her music. She had transformed the silence into a symphony of triumph. After the concert, a group of girls approached her, their faces contrite. Imani, one of them said, her voice hesitant, that was amazing. We were wrong about you. Imani smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Thank you, she said. I appreciate that. She knew that the prejudice wouldn't disappear overnight, but she had broken through. She had made them see her not as an outsider, but as a human being, a talented musician who deserved to be there. As she walked out of the auditorium, the weight on her shoulders had lifted. The silence no longer felt suffocating. It felt like a space, an opportunity to fill with her own voice, her own music, her own story. Imani knew that her journey at Crestwood Academy was far from over, but she was no longer afraid. She had found her voice, her strength, her power. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she could overcome anything with her music and her unwavering spirit. The flame within her burned brighter than ever, a beacon of hope and inspiration for herself and for those who would come after her. It was a promise that silence could be broken, that barriers could be overcome, and that even in the most exclusive of spaces, a Southside girl with a violin could make her voice heard. And maybe, just maybe, change the world one note at a time.